Welcome to the Piltdown Superman podcast. It's January 11th, 2014. We're coming off some record lows. They called it the polar vortex, maybe not. But today is Saturday and it's rainy and in the upper 40s here in New York. So I consider it yo-yo weather. I was planning on going back to the logical fallacies list, pick out a few things one at a time to present to you, but I had a change of plan this morning. Getting ready to do this, then there were some really weird messages in the Facebook page message box, and I decided I have to use this. We're leading up to the third annual Question Evolution Day, and it's generating some publicity and excitement, and some people are really unhappy with that. So this fellow came along. This entire podcast is pretty much going to be an example of the Atheopath Follies. Before I go into the detail of this, I'm going to point out a concept called unargued philosophical bias. Greg Bahnsen puts it as, these are the philosophical pre-commitments of the critic which have been taken for granted rather than openly argued and supported. For instance, if they say, nobody can walk on water, miracles do not exist, there is no God, any of those kinds of things, those are what a lot of us will refer to as simply givens. They want to have their assumptions, their preconceptions, their worldviews. This is a fact, and there is no arguing about it. It's very similar to the presuppositions and worldviews that we've discussed before. Jimmy here decided to come along and say about Question Evolution Day and the Question Evolution Project,
I agree with you. A good scientist does question evolution, but do you really think creationism is any way more likely than evolution? Because I can give you evidence of evolution, hard scientific evidence, whereas you believe a man was swallowed whole by a fish and lived inside it.
I responded with, read the About section of our page, and when you resort to petty insults and logical fallacies, I doubt you can teach us anything of value. Now let's go back to his first sentence.
I agree with you. A good scientist does question evolution.
Really?
But do you really think creationism is any way more likely than evolution?
Well, if he had read the About section, he'd know that, yes, we believe creation is supported by the science and theologically.
I can give you evidence of evolution, hard scientific evidence.
Bravo! We've been looking at the hard scientific evidence and refuting it.
Whereas you believe a man was swallowed whole by a fish and lived inside it.
Well, look at that. Another circumstantial ad hominem with a tremendous sneer attached to it. Now, after I said that he can't teach us anything of value and he's resorting to petty insults and logical fallacies, he ignores that and continues,
the thing is, evolution is science. You saying it's not doesn't make it so. It is supported by scientific investigations. And you are entitled to your beliefs, but not in public schools, because you live in a secular country that doesn't favor one religion over another. And if you can find evidence of a man being swallowed whole by a fish and surviving for a few days.
Well, speaking of the fish, that's a red herring because it's got nothing to do with the topic at hand. He's just using his unargued philosophical bias and prejudicial conjecture. Now, first thing is,
evolution is science.
He's guilty of the fallacy of equivocation.
You saying it's not doesn't make it so.
Well, I'm not resorting to saying, no, it isn't, just simply as an assertion. So his putting words in my mouth for a straw man argument doesn't negate the truth of what we're doing. He's attempting a distraction.
It is
evolution, that is
supported by scientific investigations.
That's what a lot of people think, yes. But, again, we use a lot of articles and refer to sites that have thousands of articles that refute evolution and the so-called science that supports it.
You are entitled to your beliefs, but not in public schools because you live in a secular country that doesn't favor one religion over another.
Well, yes, United States is becoming a secular country. However, he's using his unargued philosophical bias and bigotry to insist that we keep, quote, religion out of the public schools. Well, he doesn't know about American history and our foundations, and further, people do have a right to their beliefs and to express them, including in public schools. He's also assuming that religion is the driving force behind creation science. No, we are wanting to present the factual scientific evidence that supports creation and refutes evolution.
If you can find evidence of a man being swallowed whole by a fish and surviving for a few days.
Again, that's a red herring. I didn't want to deal with this kind of stuff, so I said, stop harassing us with your bigotry and prejudicial conjecture. He came up with,
What conjecture? I'm trying to have a debate. Evolutionary theory is scientific. I can show you the hundreds of scientific papers giving evidence for evolution and an old Earth.
Oh, you must have a heck of a hard drive storage for all those hundreds of scientific papers, Skippy. But he just keeps insisting.
Evolutionary theory is scientific.
Well, evolution is a worldview that attempts to use scientific methods to support it. Creation science and evolution, now pay attention, they are both equally scientific and equally religious. There's an amount of faith in both. Nobody can go back and replicate the beginnings of the universe. Evolutionists cannot replicate and observe any kind of actual evolution. Now, mutations in fruit flies, sorry pal, you've still got fruit flies. You just added some wings and done other horrible things to them. But he pretty much goes around my objections and he says,
I'm trying to have a debate.
Nobody here asked for a debate from you. Or from anybody else for that matter. We didn't set this up as a debate page. There are hundreds of other pages on Facebook and on the web that you can have all the debates you want. But badgering us, and you hadn't even bothered to read what we're about, this page is set up for creationists to present our side of the story. We get the evolutionist side of the story crammed down our throats at every turn. This kind of thing is where we have our say. I told him that he was reported for harassment because, remember, I told him before, stop harassing us. I'd had enough. He keeps coming on. And you notice this with Atheopaths. They want to dominate and control. And this has been my experience for a long time. And I can't count how many instances that I've experienced this. They'll go around what you're saying, ignore your objections, attack you personally. They want to control the so-called conversation. So I reported him for harassment. Then he puts,
What? I want to have a debate with you. You question evolution, so I'm providing answers to your questions. Tell me why you don't think evolution is reliable, and I'll tell you why it is. It's simple.
Well, apparently this guy understands evolution better than some scientists who admit they don't really understand evolution and how it works. But he wants to have a debate with me? Again, I never said I wanted one, and I made it clear I want him to go away. So he just kept on badgering me.
I'm providing answers to your questions.
No, I didn't ask him any questions. Nobody on our page is asking him any questions. He just came along, started attacking us, making assertions, using his presuppositions, his unargued philosophical bias, and his worldview, and just asserting all of this as fact. We are wrong because we disagree with him.
Tell me why you don't think evolution is reliable, and I'll tell you why it is.
Oh, great. We just get a case of yes it is, no it isn't? How about examining some of the evidence that we have presented? All of these assumptions that creationists are not scientists, and people who accept creation science are strictly doing it through religion, which he assumes there is no validity to it. The irony of all of this is that we're gearing up for the third annual Question Evolution Day on February 12th, which is Darwin's birthday. And our point in this, on the very basic bare bones level, anyone should be able to agree with if you believe in freedom of speech, freedom of thought, academic freedom, employment freedom, because somebody shouldn't be fired from their job or attacked in their schools because they reject evolution. We should be able to just say, hey, I question evolution. I don't think it's quite a given. But I'm in favor of planting seeds of doubt in the minds of evolutionists, trying to get them to think and examine the evidence that they had just assumed and taken for granted and believed the pronouncements of the scientists. Okay, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but when this guy was going on about how evolution is scientific and I can show you thousands of articles and all this kind of thing, well, he was also doing another logical fallacy there of appeal to authority. It's also frequently intertwined with appeal to authority is the appeal to majority. I like to refer to this as might makes right. We'll go into appeal to authority at a later date. I've got some good examples of that one. But the whole thing is, this guy comes along, badgers and browbeats, uses all kinds of logical fallacies. In my opinion, I believe people like this are just trying to bolster their own egos as well as reassure themselves. Imagine somebody who's just going along believing evolution is a settled fact, it's true, and then, oh look, here are people who say, we believe science refutes evolution. Well, that's got to threaten their paradigm. One reason I gave you these examples is to show that people will do this. They'll just come along and, to use a term from Matt Slick, they'll use verbal carpet bombing, but he was using that on the radio, so here it is, written carpet bombing. But it didn't take long for me to see that this is somebody who just wants to attack, and I didn't want to waste time on him. And ironically, he supported the purpose of Question Evolution Day, February 12th. And you can be involved too. Whether it's big or small, you can say that you support our right to question evolution without fear of reprisals, ridicule, and so forth. And we've got it at www.piltdownsuperman.com. You can look for the tab under Question Evolution Day, and you can find out how you can get involved. It's not going to cost you anything. You can make statements. We also put it up as an annual event on the Question Evolution Project page on Facebook. So we hope that you'll be involved.